Alright, P-Pop.
What's up?
Now, you recently produced a little bit of video talking about Monster Hunter and how you think Monster Hunter has shifted. So, Monster Hunter Wilds has just come out, and I think probably
hmm
your all-time favorite is Monster Hunter GU or 4 Ultimate.
Somewhere around there. That's probably accurate.
Somewhere around there.
Yeah,
Somewhere
yeah,
around there.
sure.
Potentially a couple of points I'd like to dive into on how do you better justify that. I would like to sort of pick your brain a little bit. Does that
You
sound
want to
good?
pick my brain? All right, go on.
Pick your brain a little
Shoot
bit.
away, emu.
So,
Um,
mm,
might be worth just. I don't know if we're gonna link it anywhere, but yeah, I made a video on a different channel, and it's just is as you say. It's I think it's called what is it? Is Monster Hunter losing its identity? And really, the short of it is just the old school games felt very, very unique. And they offered me an experience that I couldn't get anywhere else. And I think that there's positives to the direction it's going, but ultimately it feels less like it has its own unique identity and more like it's homogenized with the sort of AAA action RPG space.
okay.
I'd say that's the short and skinny of it, but you want to do a deep dive into some points then.
Well, a couple of the points. I think one of the big controversial things. I didn't go through and read comments on your video or Reddit or anything, whatever. Um, but I think one of your points was you almost lamenting this idea that you don't have to gather honey anymore.
Okay. Yeah.
Now I'm probably strawmanning that, but what do you make of that idea, and what was your actual point? If it's different to that.
Gathering honey. Well, I think I said specifically at that some point that I'm not saying that that stopping and spending a bunch of time gathering honey is like peak game design
Yeah,
and that
yeah.
everything should emulate it. Um, but I think the sort of the broader point there was so when you're playing Wilds, just like any Monster Hunter, it's important to have enough potions to keep you going because at some point you're going to take damage and you need to heal, obviously.
Yeah.
And when I was playing Monster Hunter Wilds, I kind of noticed that I just always had 10 mega potions. I don't think I ever was in danger. At some point in the late game, I think I was running low and I just crafted a whole bunch. But I think that just adds on to the point here that what I found when I'm playing that game is I could just while riding around on my sacred, I can just gather honey by like I kind of go into this mode of okay, sacred, take me to the monster, and I'm just going to be constantly aiming my slinger to grab stuff. And as I pass by honey, I just sling it, and then I get like stacks of three or whatever, and that allows me to pile up that resource. And I think that's the same with just about every resource in the game that's relevant. The distinction here that I kind of wanted to make was you aren't really consciously making a decision there really because you are just kind of going through the motions and you just happen to be getting stuff along the way with minimal
Okay.
friction and effort.
So that's partly due to the fact that the secret is like auto pathing you, and you're just kind of almost mindlessly slingering things.
Yeah,
There's not really choice and decision there, or
exactly. And so what you could end up kind of saying in a roundabout way is it's almost like you just start with the farm and it's just growing everything for you because ultimately you are just stockpiling these things pretty effortlessly in my mind. Whereas
mm,
in the older games, um, if you want mega potions in the early game, you have to stop and gather honey and that means like taking a like deliberately pausing the hunt. You're not going to go fight the monster, or maybe you fought it, it's run to another area, and you're going to hold off on chasing it because you need to stop and gather this stuff. And I think I use honey as a specific example because I think mega potions, um, it- like everyone can kind of understand the utility of those.
yes.
And so that was kind of why I settled on that one. Yeah, maybe that's a starting point. I don't know if that.
Okay. Okay, so I think we've already kind of established. Look, it's a very relevant example because honey is just it. it is necessary for the core gameplay loop, one way or the other.
Hmm.
So I think that's why you used it, I suppose. Now, part of the issue that we're facing is that the gathering of the honey was made fairly autonomous, or at least autonomous as far as your decision making process occurs. But you actually stated here, you mentioned the farm, and I think that's one of the biggest points that I want to understand your perspective on.
Hmm.
So, do you like that the farm exists?
In any of the games.
Yeah, well, let's just take your favorite version, or whatever you think is sort of peak Monster Hunter as you see it.
Yeah, I'm going to take Generations Ultimate because it is one of my favorite games from the classic era, and it's also the one I've played the most recently. So, my short answer is yes, I like the farm,
Hmm.
um, but there is a longer answer there.
Okay, please
And
hit me.
what I like about the farm is two things. One is it doesn't kick off at full speed immediately, which means as a experienced player, or even as a new player, I guess it doesn't really matter too much. Either way, you can't immediately start getting all the resources you need.
Yep.
So for a new player, it just feels like part of the progression. For an experienced player coming back to one of these games, it's also a matter of, do you like you're making a decision kind of long term. Do you want to try and stockpile things like honey or herbs, insects, etc., or do you want to just wait till you get the farm? So, first of all, the fact that it comes in a bit later, I like. The other thing is because it is actually a form of progression in the game. You unlock more features of the farm. So you don't start off with, like, when the farm unlocks. I don't think in Generations Ultimate you start off with the honey farm. You have to
Oh.
do the right stuff in the village, or it might be the hub, but I think it's the village for the honey farm.
Oh.
You have to
Okay.
do the right quests to actually get honey from that. And so, I mean, to me, yeah, it's like at some point you should be able to automate these things that are sort of tedious. But I like that doesn't kick in straight away.
Okay, well, let me see what you think about this. When I was reflecting on this subject, the topic of the farm really stood out to me because I think it kind of represents this thing that we all kind of look forward to and we all accept as good, but it kind of contradicts the argument that, well, it would be good game design if we had to stop and choose to collect some honey or whatever the case is. Those ideas seem to be a little bit at odds. And then I thought, well, it's not necessarily true that it's completely at odds, because actually it's a progression. I think you used the word progression there at some point, and
Hmm.
you unlock it. But actually, that's very important. The fact that you don't
Hmm.
start with it, but then you get it. I can think of a game like Terraria, for example. Now,
Yes.
you start off, the way that you mine in Terraria is so slow at the beginning.
Hmm.
You kind of don't care at the start of a playthrough that you're mining so slow. It's almost like you don't know any different. Even if you're a
Yep.
veteran player and you know what it's like to mine super speed, I don't know, you're somehow just excited. Each block takes like a second as opposed to the like zero point 0.1 second that it is a late game, and you'll happily slowly mine. Every block matters, and then you
Yeah.
upgrade.
Even copper. You want to dig up copper for armor or whatever.
Dude, you're so excited. And it really made me think, I wonder if it's just an issue that there's no hero's journey. You start off with a secret that you don't upgrade, it goes full speed, you don't choose where it goes, there's nothing about it, and you just sling it to your heart's content, with sort of no player agency, whatever, and then problem is solved. It almost feels like you're starting Terraria with uh, a platinum pickaxe that's already been, no, titanium. Yeah, here we go, because that's hard mode. You're starting with a titanium pickaxe that's already been re-rolled to maximum plus speed. Do you like that basic analogy?
Yeah, and not only that, but you're also starting with wings and a grappling hook, and It's like you've got all the tools right away because you've got the sacred, but then you've also got the slinger, and the fact that when you use the slinger, you get multiple things each sling,
Yeah.
and it's the sacred is faster than moving, and it also takes you to the spot automatically. So, in so many different vectors, you've removed any friction. I agree. I think ultimately my sentiment on the farm is it's a positive, but I wouldn't like it if I had it. At least I don't think I would like it if I had it immediately in those games. I feel like in that sort of situation, I don't think it would be a positive thing if right away there was no need to like tell my character to get on his knees and grab up some honey from the ground.
Yep. Okay. So, would you like it? Do you feel like this would alleviate some of the issue if the secret was something that was upgraded over time? Maybe like in Zelda, you have a brief glimpse of your Link at full power starting with a Master Sword, but then it gets taken away from you. So maybe you get to borrow someone else's trained secret or something. But then it you are put back into reality and you have a untrained secret. You're not used to writing it. Maybe you can't tell it where to go. Maybe it doesn't have an inventory by itself. Maybe you as a writer, you haven't learned to use the slinger from the back of it, and maybe at a certain point you would get a quest that enables you to upgrade the slinger, or I don't know, you get a mastery or something where you as a character kind of develops the skill set to be able to slinger from the back of the secret. Do you feel like that would put it more in line with a farm, or is that still there's still some design issue going on there that you don't like?
Wow. Okay, that is a really good and fascinating question. Um, Man, I'd have to think about that a bit. I so the so this obviously mm, it's one particular like small area of the game that is very impactful, but obviously it's like what if we drastically change this one pillar in a game with 80 different pillars? What would I think about it? But if I do try to just focus on that, I think it would be an improvement from my experience if it started out that I had to um, use a lot more manual effort, and over time things became automated, faster, required less cognitive effort. However, I don't know that the way I would prefer it is that it went from across the entire game. I'm accruing these upgrades, these boosts, and they're there to
Yeah.
stay. The reason being, let's say I halfway through the game you unlock the ability for the sacred to just automatically track down the monster. Well, what if one of the maps is unlocked after that point? And in my mind, one of the positives of taking away the automatic tracking is that you're forced to learn the layout of the maps,
Right.
and so that becomes a skill. Navigation becomes a skill, and knowing where certain things are is a skill.
Yep.
But
Okay.
then at some point that gets negated completely. So for
So,
me, it's more like each time I would rather build the skill as I hunted a monster in a map. Like I gradually unlocked the ability to track it or whatever. Does that make sense?
it does completely. And one of the solutions that came to mind when thinking through this is maybe a secret would never have auto find, or maybe if it did, it was only after you had completely like you had complete mastery over a specific map. None of the map names come to mind. It's not the sort of thing that my brain ever chooses to remember. But I don't know. Forbidden Forests is maybe the starting map of whatever for you or something. Maybe after you've hunted every monster in it multiple times, maybe you unlock autopathing. But before that point, maybe it's a thing along with getting your item sets up and getting your food pre-hunt. What if it was a thing that you had to set the destination of your secret, and not only did the destination but the pathway? So you get a basic, like a map that shows up with all the zones, and you kind of click I don't know, nodes, and it just auto draws a line, like a pathing line between those nodes. So you're like, okay, I want to go from here. I want to go to zone 2. I then want to go to 3 and then 5 and then up to 9. I think the monster's going to be at 9, but I know sometimes it can fly to 5. So that's kind of why I'm going to 5 first. But even 5, I'm going in a roundabout direction through 1, 2, and 3 because there's honey nodes there that I want. So it's manual. There's still, it seems to me anyway, and again I'm just pushing your thoughts, trying to see how you think about this. Does that tick the box of it has my player agency and decision making? I I still care about, like, I'm doing this decision to get the honey, for example. But it also takes my map mastery into consideration of knowing where those nodes are, knowing where the monster is likely to spawn, and where it likes to travel. Does that tick some of those boxes while still introducing some of this secret kind of quality of life stuff?
It does, although there's a gigantic asterisk next to that for me
Yeah, unpack the
because I
asterisk, man.
think
What's the footnote?
sure I can. So I think in terms of when you lay out things in a very like, hey, does it mean that map mastery is important? It's like, yes, it does. But at the end of the day, what you're describing sounds like I'm still going to set the sacred to auto path through the map, but I'm having to mess around with UI a bunch beforehand. And it's true that, okay, well then I should there's a level of mastery to knowing the fastest paths around the map, perhaps. But then I think you then still lose the sense of exploring the map and finding like walking through it and knowing the paths and observing your surroundings. So like to me it's like in a sort of surface level sense, yes, you're kind of getting the best of both worlds, but in reality, it feels like you're getting the worst of both worlds to me with a system like that because you still got all these conveniences added in, um, but you're adding in friction through UI. And yes, there is some mastery, but none of it has any of the charm to it because again, you're playing with UI. Does that I could like maybe I'm imagining the wrong thing. Maybe if I had it in front of me, I could see, this makes way more sense. But from a pure theoretical point of view, it's like, yeah, but no.
Okay, I feel like I understand your perspective because a lot of the mastery gets pushed into a UI as opposed to you as a player. You organically spawn in and you are trudging your way through zones 1 and 2 to have a, well, at the start you don't even know where the monster's going to be, and you're slowly walking through it, and you're like, while I'm passing by I'll pick this thing up, and while I'm passing by I'll pivot my camera to have a look at what's around, and so that gets missed even if you've
Hmm.
got this, I guess I'll call it semi-automatic. It's good we're treating secret like a gun at this point. How fantastic. That's legal, it's not full automatic, so that's fine. um,
Okay.
Interesting, because I think previously we've had some discussions, and you actually kind of, I think, really like some of the ritual. And I think a lot of that ritual actually is UI heavy. So
Okay. Okay.
manually choosing food elements, manually checking your equipment set, and sitting there being like, well, actually, I don't plan on gathering anything this
Yep.
run, and my inventory is so limited, so I'll manually
Hmm.
move my pickaxe back into the box.
Yep.
All extremely UI heavy, but I think you have stated that actually all of this. What's the word you use? There's a word you use for this. Fanfare?
Ceremony is probably
Ceremony. All of this ceremony actually adds together to create this feel of I am preparing for a hunt.
hmm
So could you extrapolate that?
the reason why I'm okay with those other things being UI oriented is because I don't have a map, like a map I'm physically walking through in front of me. It wouldn't make sense to have a gigantic room with all of my armor sets laid up all over the place and weapons stacked all around the ground. I guess that'd be a lot more diegetic. Maybe that would be interesting. I'm not sure, but with the sheer like hundreds of items in my item chest, it seems to make sense that that's handled through a UI. And yes, I do like that I'm having to kind of manually put that effort in. Although some level of automation I don't mind. I like item sets, for example, where I've
Yeah.
just put in the time and now I'm just pressing a button to get the set once I've figured that out. I like that I choose food and that ceremony makes sense to me. Again, I don't know that anything more diegetic would would just is that too inconvenient? It might be.
What does diegetic mean? Can I just
Sorry,
stop you there?
diegetic is like something that is presented in a way that is, I guess, um, realistic or authentic. So UI is non-diegetic, but if I if I had to go up to an armor stand to put on armor instead of just accessing it through a box menu, that would be more diegetic because it's presented in the world.
Okay.
It's accessible there. It's physical there.
Yep. All right. I see the difference.
Yeah. So, I mean, it just makes there's some things that you would present diegetic and some things that you wouldn't because it just doesn't make sense for one reason or another. Although I haven't seen them attempt to do it. But when it comes to map navigation, like to me, walking around the map, observing your surroundings, and being aware of how to get from A to B in a very physical sense, that to me is like I don't see a good reason to get rid of that. I think that's I don't know if that's answered your question, but that to me is the distinction there between those 2 points.
Hmm. Let's move away from the idea of your slingering things, and let's move away from the fact that it's autopathing. Do you just have an issue that it's moving too fast?
No, if the world was built around the speed of the mount and that was it, no, I don't think so. So long as the mount is kept purely for navigation. So one last little distinction I'll make there is both the Palamutes in Rise and the Sacred in Wilds. Even if we took away the pathing, etc., everything you've talked about, there's still the issue of I can, whenever I'm in a pinch, bring out my mount and then run out and drink a potion and sharpen and whatever. Whereas when I'm locked in with a monster in the classic games, I really have to think about how I'm going to find a safe point. But if it's just purely the map is large and it makes sense to go faster than your standard walking speed, no, I don't have an issue with that. I don't think. Although I think your question before with the whole setting a path up to go down, again, it sounded to me like that was about setting up the automated path that then the sacred follows. So in my mind, the way I'm kind of visualizing this is I see the map beforehand, I set a bunch of nodes, I close the map, and then I'm not really being very conscious of what I'm doing. It's more like, now I just kind of zone out and slinger things as I pass by, which is the kind of the thing that I'm not a fan of. I
Okay.
prefer it when I'm in control and I'm kind of forced to know how to navigate the map. Even if I did it faster on a mount, that's fine.
Okay. Like for me, I struggle to see that perspective because in my mind, that's not really any different to using an item set. Like in some sense, you're right. Once you've set up an item set, it takes away a conscious decision because I just click my item set. I don't have to manually think about all the detail. But because I have made the conscious decision to set up that item set, every time I do select it, it feels like there is a... It's like I know I'm making this decision, I've set this up, I know what this is adding to my inventory, this is what I need, and I don't need to add anything else for this thing. In fact, let me use the keyword of set. There's item sets and equipment sets. What if there was just a separate thing called map sets? You have a set, you can predefine them. Going through the Forbidden Forest, I've got this set and this set. If I'm hunting, maybe it needs to be based on the monster, not the actual map. because that seems to matter a lot. If I'm hunting a Rathalos in the Forbidden Forest, this is my set. So then I just kind of select it, and I'm okay with that. It's not taking away from any of the fanfare. Again, I can't remember the word you used. It's so ridiculous.
Ceremony.
Ceremony. Oh my. But it's like
It's fine.
built into the system, and it actually doesn't take away from conscious decision making, because I'm knowing full well that even though I've got this set as the path that I'm taking, I might still want to hop off and grab some honey and then like I don't.
Maybe it would be helpful if I twisted this a little bit in a direction, and we circle back to it. So let me ask you a question. If, let's say, we were going through some sort of forest on a holiday, like we're out camping somewhere, and there was like a hiking trail or whatever,
Gotcha.
and I said, "Hey, let's take. I know like a little shop that's at the end of this forest, and like I'd like to get breakfast there, or lunch or whatever.
Okay.
Let's hike down this trail and get there."
Yep.
And you said, "Oh, but there's actually a tram line. Like there's a line here that you can go down like a train track, and it'll take us there in 5 minutes. We don't have to do the walking." And I said, "But I want to do the walk because like there's a value in doing it, even though it takes longer."
Okay.
And I have to think about how we're going to get there. Like we have to be following the trail. Like I can't just zone out in the train track
Gotcha.
because there's a vehicle taking us there. Can we agree that there is a distinction between how much you would enjoy going through nature potentially if you had to slow down and walk through it? Like, is there a difference in experience between hiking and driving a car? Essentially, is
Oh,
what I'm
I
asking.
couldn't agree more. There's obviously a difference. Are the two vectors of difference time spent and I think this is the more important one, decision making in the details, or sort of the minutia and the conscious human experience at each moment.
Even if take away utility, like forget decisions, forget time, just in like enjoying nature.
Okay, sort of the immersion in the experience.
Is there a difference there? Is there a difference there between how much you get to soak in the experience when you're hiking versus when you are a passenger in a car?
Yep. I
Yes.
I do see that, but I could
I
also
think I don't think that's controversial to say at all, right?
no, no,
Well,
no. There's
I know
definitely
we're
a
going
difference.
apples to oranges here, but
Yeah, yeah, no.
it might be helpful.
Yep.
So this is my point. I think it's not only is there a difference in your level of agency, um, and is there a difference in convenience, but when we're navigating maps in Monster Hunter, but there's also a difference in just raw experience when when you are manually navigating a map and you don't like zone out and look to the side of your screen or whatever, and you actually have to walk in a particular direction to get from area to area, and that gives you the opportunity to look around at your surroundings. Like I think there is a difference there. Now, that to me is the difference between walking around and setting up this map set that you're talking about.
Uh-huh.
I would still be okay if after I've hunted a monster enough times or I've done a map enough times that I can just get on the sacred and it automatically takes me there.
Yep. Okay.
If I already know that the monster is always going to be in area 5, then I don't need, and I'm not going to stop to gather honey anyway because I'm far enough in the game. Then fine, I don't need you, give me the automation. That's fine. I don't mind. But getting to that point is important for me.
Yeah, sure. And I think that was fairly clear. That's why I brought up the farm idea.
Okay.
And it's
Yep.
almost this. I think I used the statement. There's no hero's journey. You sort of start from the bottom and you become that. And it's not just that you unlock something. I think one of your biggest things is it's not just about unlocking a thing, but it's actually about you as a player have that experience, and sort of you as a player
Yes.
become the hero. Which is
Yes.
I think
Absolutely.
we both agree with that, but I think
Yes.
other people listening might need to hear that distinction for themselves.
Sure.
The player needs to sort of immerse themselves and adopt the learning of the world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. I'm not sure I have too much more to say about that. I think I understand all of your distinctions.
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, I really I mean, I love the thoughtful questions and the like. It's not even devil's advocate. It's just good lines of questioning. And I feel like it's helped me understand my own positions better.
Awesome.
I'm since we used the semi-automatic metaphor before,
Okay.
I want to turn the gun on you.
Oh, no.
You don't have as much nostalgia for the classic games as I do.
That's right.
I think you started with 4 Ultimate,
Mm.
so there might be still a little bit in there. We'll see. What do you think about general like the topics we've been talking about? Do you want the convenience of being able to get those resources en masse? And what do you think about the automation of tracking down monsters? Like what do you think about all the conveniences added that save time like this?
Yeah, yeah. It's really tough because I came up with this secret argument, this like semi-automated you get to choose because I was wrestling with this very topic. On one hand, um, I absolutely agree that there's something that's been lost. I don't know how I want to define it, but I think at bare minimum, it is a disgrace that paintballing a monster and having that as just a sort of a key agency for when you encounter a monster, you think to yourself, oh my goodness, I need to paintball this thing as soon as possible, because if it flees, instead of knowing where it is and quickly running to it and feeling good about myself, I then need to run the risk of going to like 3 incorrect zones, and now I've wasted 5 minutes and it's been healing in all that time. There is some quite extreme stuff lost. So I think I've got enough nostalgia to say that. Probably as some of my questions make it clear, I think there is a middle ground, and so far I'm not quite convinced that my system of having like this sort of upgradable secret is not just the best of both worlds, which is ironic since you said it's the worst of both worlds, and it would take.
Well then, um, I mean, it sounds like we have some shared ground and some room there for disagreement still. I am very intrigued by your proposal of a more upgradable mount. Maybe someday we can flesh out the details and hand it over to Capcom.
Okay, fantastic. All right, man. Thanks for the chat. I no long. I mean, I already. I listen to your arguments generally, and I don't think you're an idiot. So I don't think I ever strawman your position to say, this guy just wants to pick more honey."
No,
But I feel like I definitely have a better sense now that it's that's really not the case, and it's for X, Y, and Z clear, concrete reasons. So thank you.
thank you.
All right, catch you, man. Let's talk again. I've got some other burning questions on Monster Hunter.
Oh man, I am keen.